pretty consistently, and he's going to do the same against Ender.
Wow. Wow. Look at that class diversity, TJ. Six different
unique
classes.
It's the promised land, Dan. We've reached it.
Oh, yes. Wow. Yeah, I mean, banning the priest was definitely an interesting choice. Wasn't expecting that per se, but hey, can't really blame it. Priest has some really powerful matchups, and if anything that this tournament has proven, it's just further respect for Spiteful Priest. I first thought that, for a while, right after 10.2, that Spiteful Priest wasn't as hyped as it is, or it shouldn't live up to the hype.
Sure.
But it's still really good, because I was a firm believer that Dragon Combo Priest was still like the better deck, and almost no one brought it. And Spiteful Priest still is very dangerous.
Yes. I think the difference being that Spiteful Priest fits in an aggressive lineup better, whereas Dragon Combo Priest doesn't have as much crossover with, like, say, Secret Mage. And it's one of the reasons why you see the Spiteful Priest in a lineup strategy as opposed to just individual power level of decks. I honestly still think Dragon Combo Priest individually is a more powerful deck than Spiteful Priest.
Right.
People may disagree with me, but in a vacuum, I think it is. But in a lineup strategy, I think Spiteful Priest fits better.
Okay. Well, that's certainly very interesting to note there. Firefly off the top, and very nice pick up there for Odyssey, so you can get a little semblance of board control against the Murloc Paladin. Because what's important isn't necessarily getting the quest off the Firefly, it's the Flame Elemental if needed. This is the kind of start that's made of nightmares. You're so afraid of the Rockpool Hunter. Look at Odyssey just snap calling. This is in stark contrast to his series versus Ghost, where it was just like really, really tight ropes back and forth.
Probably because against Ghost, Odyssey had lost to Ghost earlier on in the tournament.
Oh, okay. Right.
And he changed up his ban strategy and had a little bit of time to think about what his game plan would be. And he said he sort of changed his approach. And I think when you change your approach like that, of course, you're going to take things slower because you want to make sure that you're actually doing what you're supposed to do against a lineup like that. He had been Shaman in the first series against Ghost. Completely changed it up, banned Rogue the second time, and it looked like a much easier series for him.
Yeah, we've seen that happen in a lot of tournaments in recent times. Most notably in the Summer Championships.
Orange.
Yeah.
Versus Omega
banned
Zero,
Hunter
right?
And then said, you know what, I'm just going to ban a better deck.
Yeah.
And then won.
That's right. Vanish ends up being pretty good against Murloc Paladin. They can reload, but a lot of times that's sort of the tempo that you need.
Yeah, it's usually just about a time issue. You can win the board most of the time, but it does change when Paladin has Call to Arms. That's almost the point of no return, because you're just looking for the damage as the Paladin, because you want to rush the Quest Rogue down, and Call to Arms is so sticky, and unless they have preparation, it's not going to really happen.
Yeah, and Odyssey isn't really that close to even anywhere near completing the quest.
Yeah.
No bounce effects right now outside of Vanish, which is the messiest of bounce effects, and no Gadget and Ferryman or Youthful Master or Shadow Step, or even Sonya Shadow Dancer would be good in this situation because of the fact that Stone Touch Spores are in the hand. So can use Zola the Gorgon to maybe get a little bit online, but he's kind of running out of time because Ender's board is going to snowball very quickly.
Well, it's definitely going to be the case here, and Ender definitely taking the initiative with the Knife Juggler, setting up for even more powerful swings on the board with Call to Arms. And if you're Odyssey, you're kind of sweating here.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. The preparation comes into hand.
So he does have enough to complete quest now with Stone Tusk Spore, prep Vanish, next turn Stone Tusk Spore, Zola the Gorgon, Stone Tusk Spore. So that is 5.
Yeah, and that is enough mana to spend out his turn.
Yeah, it would be spending out both turns, and so he would need another additional turn beyond that.
Well, he wouldn't have to play the Stone Tusk Boar immediately there. He could save the boar and then play like a Wax or...
Yeah, and then get the immediate value
right
out of the charge from the 5/5 from the Stone Tusk Boar, which you wouldn't be doing to Wax alone. So I do agree with that line, but the important part is that he has enough to complete the quest. Is that the plan he wants to go for? Does he want to wait for potentially a better way? But I don't think there's going to be a better way to do it.
Well, he could he front load the Zola mana instead, like Stone Tusk Boar Zola?
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, and then wait one more turn to go for the Vanish, and that way he can try and get out a little bit more resources, take a little bit more damage in the process.
Right.
But then he'll have sort of an extra turn of development for minions.
The extra Stone Toss board being played on the board, I thought he wanted to save it so he can vanish it, guarantee it back, so he can get another.
Oh yeah, because he would need both from the vanish.
Right.
Because right now he only has 4.
Right.
So he need a bounce effect.
Yeah. What? That I don't think that was the right line here for Odyssey because he ended up just going face with the board. I think he panicked from the robe, and then
potentially.
Yeah, because if you're not going to at least use the charger to do anything, usually you play this 1-mana minion in order to get ahead of the mana curve. So that way you're utilizing every single mana crystal that you have. But in this case, Odyssey just burned his ability to finish the quest, guaranteed, and get the charge off the board immediately.
Yeah, so now he needs an additional bounce effect. He does have a ton in his deck, still 6 left, and he finds one. But that's extra mana that he has to spend on bouncing, and a bounce that he won't get to use.
Well, so how much damage is he going to take if he just like decides to take another turn? He'll take 2, 4, 6, 8 plus Megazord could just kill him. So I think this is a grounds to use a Vanish here. And I don't know if you can stall. Having that second board would change so much.
Yeah.
If you just played like say the Wax Elemental instead last turn to stall.
So it'd be Stone Tusk Boar, Prep, Vanish, Stone Tusk Boar, Youthful Brewmaster. I know you wouldn't have enough mana for that. That's 7.
You can Stone Tusk Boar, Youthful Brewmaster. No, you can't do that either.
No, he could do that.
Oh, sorry, you can do that, but then the Prep Vanish kind of defeats the purpose of why you're using Vanish. You're using it to get the board back. So the Vanish and the Brewmaster do the same thing. They put the board back in your hand.
Yeah. But this doesn't line him up well to complete the quest next turn because he needs the additional mana spared up.
Unless he played the board.
Unless he played the board. Because
now you should play the board.
Now you should play the board. Because if you play the board, then you can...
You're 100% right. Unless it gets juggled. Okay.
Yeah, and then if it gets juggled, then you're just really sad.
Yeah, but I mean, you got to take a risk. Murloc Fountain's a bad matchup.
Yeah.
Well, what is happening in this game? Now he needs another prep.
This board is a mess, Dan. This board doesn't...
Oh,
okay.
Wow.
I guess even if he had played the board, he wouldn't have enough mana anyway. Because he would have had to spend 2 mana on Youthful Brewmaster. It would have been 1 mana.
You're right. No.
So it didn't matter in the long run.
He still needed some way to get a cheap bounce.
And this is the same amount of damage.
You're right.
Yeah. But the Shadow Step kind of saves him there.
Man, Odyssey just being saved by the skin of his teeth. But is it even enough? I mean, there is Spellbreaker and War Leader next turn. And Odyssey does not have a guaranteed way to win the game next turn. He did use his Vanish.
If he doesn't clear off a minion there, then Ender would win the game because he'd have exactly 16 damage with Spellbreaker plus War Leader. So a wise trade into one of these Murlocs. Quest Rogue is hard, man.
Quest Rogue is really tricky. You know, it's very easy to miscount things by 1, and the big part of it is that because all these minions are so fragile, and because it's so important to conserve your resources, a lot of times 1 mistake can cause you to lose the game.
Yep.
But it does have the potential to win. A lot of players still climb the top 10 legend every season. I think Teray got again top 10 last season.
Yeah.
And that marks like what, the 6th or 7th season in a row he's gotten Quest Rogue top 10. Yeah. I don't know how he does it, man. And I like this from Ender. He's just trying to fatigue the Rogue of Resources. Can't really top deck a Vanish to lethal him. Recognizes very much that as long as he sticks a little bit of a board, he can deal with 1 single 5/5 per turn.
Mm-hmm. And I like the Rockpool Hunter on the other Rockpool Hunter here because Murloc War Leader is the priority kill. So by putting it on the Rockpool Hunter, you sort of spread out your damage the best way possible.
Whoa, he can spend his entire mana. He can play. You're the Brewmaster, and then Ferryman the Brewmaster, and then Brewmaster the Ferryman. I want him to do it. Please, honestly. For the fans. Aww.
Nope.
Wonder if Ender can get a potential lethal here. I don't think so.
No.
Yeah, he's not playing the Murloc.
Wait. Actually, no, he wouldn't have enough.
Yeah.
If Knife Juggler was the first, he could have 2 maximum juggles that could go face. But he'd only have 1 additional board space left.
Yeah.
And he would need 2 additional juggles. And they would all have to go face, so. But unless Vanish comes out, Odyssey is absolutely no way out.
But even if he gets a Vanish. For the fans,
For the
honestly,
fans!
please. The game is giving you one more choice. Aw, boo.
It's not quite as exciting as the Druid OTK, but
Yeah.
we take him where we can get him.
It's still essentially an 8-card combo at heart. All right, well, you know, that was kind of a very one-sided affair. I don't know if the double board conservation play would have changed that much, given that it seemed like the Paladin had continuous waves of pressure. But it's definitely worth to think about.
There would have been 1 more bounce.
You're right.
Because he wouldn't have had to use the Youthful Brewmaster.
Uh-huh.
And maybe you can preserve and trade off more minions
Right.
with the Stone Tusk board, and that has a snowball effect of every turn you have 1 more minion.
Yes.
So then all of a sudden your bounce effects, which he drew 3 of back to back to back, become more valuable.
Yeah, and he also had multiple uses for things like Glacial Shard if you want to push tempo as opposed to value. Yeah.
And there's a very thin line when you're playing as Quest Rogue between losing and winning. Because since you have so much power on the board at any given time, you're threatening lethal in so many different ways with so many different draws. And so I do think that the outcome could have been changed in that game, but it's hard to make those situations pan out.
Yeah.
In our heads, since that's not the way they panned out in the game.
Right. So, you know, every single small decision with Quest Rogue is going to matter, but Ender got the Murloc Paladin win, which is not that surprising. Murloc Paladin's very good in general.
Yeah.
Its weakest matchup is against Warlock, but even then, the percentages are actually starting to tilt into the Murloc Paladin's favor as they get better playing around removal, understanding certain power spike turns, teching in double spell breakers.
But Odyssey does have the control variant.
Yeah.
So there's more tools for the control variant to be able to deal with it, like Doomsayer.
True that.
Stopping tempo with Doomsayer is huge against Murloc Paladin. So I think Ender had 2 really good matchups with Murloc Paladin, with Rogue and the Secret Mage, and then 1 bad one, and he was able to get one of the good ones, and that's, you know, probably part of his strategy when he's playing that Murloc Paladin first.
Right. So in a best-of-5 conquest grid, you have 9 potential matchups. According to this, just based off of very cursory paper theory, there's only 1 bad matchup he had, which was Murloc Paladin versus the Warlock. He should be good to go for the rest of the series.
Yeah. Now, the Quest Rogue, on the other hand, for Odyssey, is his deck that's very likely to get a win.
Right.
Because against both the Spiteful decks, which are the 2 decks remaining for Ender, Quest Rogue does fantastically against.
Yes.
Especially the Spiteful Priest. I think that matchup is very hard for Spiteful Priest because they're on a clock. And even if you get to the point where you play Spiteful on turn 6, a lot of times that's when the quest is being complete. And then you have absolutely no way outside of big taunts, which are very hard to come by, outside of, like, you get free from Amber from the Spiteful Summoner and get, like, Tyrion.
You get Spiteful Summoner like tempo, right? By generating so many 5/5s. It's like similar amount of stat pile that you able to outrace your opponent. And completely agree that the Quest Rogue does have a lot of game in the right hands. And the large reason why those stats are so skewed is because Quest Rogue's really hard, so people mess up all the time. And the win rates fall dramatically on ladder.
Yeah, and this is not a great hand for Odyssey. He needs a lot of time. Yes, he has some tools. He can, you know, Sassy Deckhand, Zola the Gorgon, and then start trading in these Sassy Deckhands with Sonya to get that quest complete. But that 3 mana is a big investment, and in order to get Sonya value from Sassy Deckhand, he also needs to fit in a Dagger Up, which is another 2 mana, which is another big investment. And every turn, Ender's just playing a big dude. And it's going to get to a certain point where he will also have to spend mana to vanish unless he wants to take that pressure. So,
Yep.
that silence was a big deal.
Very crucially, Ender did not ramp, even though he had the option to, though. So he still has a turn or two for some breathing room. So I definitely like Odyssey taking this turn, or taking this opportunity to be a little bit greedier with just setting up and spending his mana for that South Sea deckhand, because it is very clear that is his only way to finish the quest here.
Yeah. One of the things that Odyssey has going for him is that Ender's going to be trading into his minions.
Yes.
So he has some time. You can't really leave minions up against Quest Rogue, as we've seen in games with Odyssey where players have left crucial targets up. But Ender has a different idea. I guess he realizes that the way he wins is by pushing face and doesn't feel like he's going to be punished by...
I guess the nice thing is that even with Sonya, there's no dagger. So the South Sea deckhands can't get that crazy charge and clear potential that a lot of people are used to seeing with Sonya. But you can get us another Zola back. That's pretty funny.
You get another Zola back, and he can start going off with Stone Tuskboar this turn if he wants to.
Too.
And then he has Shadow Step as well.
Dude, he could get a 1-1 Sonya, right? Oh, no, he can't. No, sorry, it doesn't copy the effect. I saw a little board state the other day where some guy had like 7 Sonyas. He's like, I had the Rogue quest, play 50 cards. So it's pretty funny. So I was like, oh, man, I want to see that. But not really the case here. Yep, just going to go for the best powerful spike that he can, and that's Dark Arakoa at this moment here. And I don't know if Ender can pressure the life total significantly enough before Odyssey has all the tools. Like with Vanish and Preparation and Chargers, it seems like Odyssey should be in a very favorable position to close out this game now.
Yeah.
And, I mean, if he cleared the board, would that have prevented that, you think?
It would have prevented him from being able to do it with South Sea Deckhand.
Would have forced him to be more conservative with Sonya?
Yeah. It would have delayed the quest by, like, a turn, because quest can be completed this turn.
Yes.
Because he just needs 3 more South Sea Deckhands, and he does have the Shadow Step.
Yeah, and he has the prep, which means he can dagger and get the charge as well. That's huge.
Yeah, so actually trading in the South Sea Deckhand would have not allowed this to happen.
Just trading in general would have made it problematic for the Rogue, but at the same time, you would have the Rogue. You wouldn't have the Rogue down to 18, potentially threatening to kill them in a few turns either.
Yeah,
it's tough. I mean, Ender's gotten him down to 15 with the ability to push 6 and play the Twin Emperor.
And Twin Emperor's pretty awkward.
Yeah, you're right. He's got Cthulhu as well. I don't know. Maybe Ender saw the lines and just need to pressure life total. People always talk about how do I play around these crazy rogue combo decks like Kingsbane Rogue and Miracle Rogue and Quest Rogue. And oftentimes people say just kill them.
Yeah.
You interact with them by going face.
I mean, this turn he could just vanish, right?
Yeah, but then what if they just put up the wall again? I guess then
you could trade into the activator Veclor. And then vanish.
I like that. Oh man.
But because he wants to build a board and he wants to vanish before he builds a board, right?
Right.
So if you trade into the, but you can go down to 5, which is
5 is dicey because of Ultimate Infestation, but you plan to close out the game in the next 3 turns anyways. You can do this. Oh, man. Oh, what Ender would give to be able to ramp to 10 right now.
And you can't silence that 5/5.
You can't silence it.
Cavern's Below is a static effect.
Yes.
So no matter what, every minion on his board is a 5/5.
Yep. And if you polymorph it or you hex it, it becomes a 5/5. So what's the best way to ensure your survival to Ultimate Infestation? You know that he has a South Sea deckhand, so that's 10 damage. You need to survive 2 turns. What's your play turn 9? He's going to hope that he draws something good turn 9. He has almost nothing. Wow.
Almost enough. 15 points of damage that can be pointed at face, right?
Yeah. And, of course, stacking the board big enough.
Yeah, so this is almost impossible for Ender, I feel, at this point. There's not a card in his deck that's defensive enough.
No. Prince Kelseth is not going to do it, and Ender concedes just 1 mana crystal short, and Odyssey just barely gets by. But that's how the Quest Rogue lives.
Yeah.
Likes to live dangerously.
It does. And Ender was very close. It's hard to debate that trade, that turn where you need a trade. He pushed 6 extra damage instead of trading, and that got him to the point where if he had drawn ramp on turn 8,
right,
he would have had lethal, and that 6 damage would have mattered. So we had like 4 turns from that point to draw ramp, whether it be Greedy Sprite or second Mire Keeper. There's no way he was doing that math specifically,
right?
But that's just the scenario where him not trading pays off. Where if he does trade, he delays that quest by a turn. So it's like 6 damage, or give my opponent the quest a turn sooner, and he chose the 6 damage.
And Cthulhu is probably not very reliable as damage, so you'd have to rely on Ultimate Infestation if you even drew it. You know, he had Cthulhu in hand.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, right? How valuable is the 1 turn? And you can argue that pretty much Quest Rogue gets stronger the later the game goes, because they just get more tools to burst you down.
And also there's the informational side of it, whereas Ender didn't have perfect information like we did. So he may have not known that trading would have delayed the quest. He may have thought that Odyssey had the quest completion no matter what on the same timeline. So from his perspective, I think the damage is better, because if he expects Odyssey to complete the quest on the same timeline no matter what, then pushing damage is always the better choice. But from our perspective, of course, we can debate it because we could see both hands, but...
Yeah, and one thing that's interesting, too, is that by delaying the turn, Odyssey would have been forced to play the Cold Light Oracle in his hand to draw and dig deeper, and then that might give the options for the Druid to find the way to close the game. So there's a lot of what-ifs, and of course, that's the idea of what makes at least the high-level Hearthstone very fascinating between these players, because if you even tell those 2 players what happened, they'll talk and talk and talk and debate about it.
Speed, violence, momentum. Those are 3 words that I describe Hearthstone, Dan.
Exactly. Both these guys looking to see if they can close game 3 as quickly as they can here. Spiteful Summoner Priest up against Secret Mage, which Secret Mage, again, kind of going through some struggles. But keeping Aluneth and Kirin Tormage, Odyssey knows what he needs to do to win this matchup. He needs to convincingly swing the tempo and also rely upon the legendary weapon to get high value and eventually burn out the resources, or even just burn out the life total if necessary.
I was about to say
what
this
a
is
rip, by the way, man.
Yeah.
1-1.
And I was also about to say this is 100% a cleric draw, but alas, no turn 1 cleric.
I mean, you've got a 1-3 on 1 though. That's the big deal with a lot of these decks. It feels like you don't have a 1-mana play for a lot of these mid-range tempo decks. Your win rate drops by 10, 20%.
And Fair Dragon is a fantastic pickup, because this is going to almost certainly force the trade from the Sorcerer's Apprentice. Because if you leave Fair Dragon up, it eats up the Mana Worm, and then you can't ping it down, so it's going to eat another minion. So you have to force the trade now to be able to just ensure that you're not getting 2 for 1. And even past that, Cabal Talon Priest would punish it immensely. So, all right, well, this game plan means that Odyssey doesn't care about his minions dying. He wants as much minion damage early on because he has Aluneth and feels like he's going to be able to just burn Ender out of the game before he can get there.
He just wants to push face.
Yeah. He feels like if he plays a minion every turn and goes face, he'll always have a minion to be able to follow up the pressure with. That's his game plan. So he doesn't care about his minions being traded off for value. He just cares about getting as much damage in as possible.
Does he fireball face next turn then, based off that logic? Because the idea is that he's willing to give up the board. Picks up a better play with the Arcane Intellect into a secret. Whew.
Huh. I would think a 2-1 would be more valuable.
I think you might want to play Cabal Lackey and the Cabal Crystal Runner going into the Dustbreaker turn. So you might be thinking that if his opponent Dustbreakers, he can recover.
Sure, yeah.
That's my guess.
No, that's almost 100% correct. That's what Odyssey's thinking now.
Oh, Ender sees such aggressive play and is willing to heal the minion. Doesn't want to give up his coin whatsoever. He has back-to-back Spiteful Summoners. Oh, that counter spell.
Wow.
But it's not like Ender doesn't have plays. You'll get counterspelled and then play the Jacketed Operative. This is one of the few times you'll see counterspell be super effective against a Spiteful Summoner deck.
Maybe Dustbreaker is better?
Oh yeah, Dustbreaker is better.
You take 3 damage from the explosive runes,
yep.
but you clear off the whole board.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to take minion damage. You want to force your opponent to have the burn, but that's where Aluneth comes in. Aluneth, and Odyssey was able to spot this from the very beginning, and why we keep Aluneth almost every time.
Yeah.
But Ender has 1 turn to power swing the board. If he gets Tarantus, Deathwing Dragon
Light Lord. It's 10 mana.
Yeah. I don't know why, but I just assumed that it's 10 mana.
Yeah,
I rarely get 8.
Yeah. And that's another Ultrasaur. Add that to the list. That's 5 so far this tournament. And Odyssey's got 1 game plan. Punch him in the face with spells.
Ender could be dead next turn to double Fireball. Jacketed Operative peers and sees a Fireball in the deck. So not only is he going to pick up Burn to race his opponent, he also knows that Odyssey hasn't drawn it yet.
But there's a pretty large amount of combinations that kill him over 2 turns. He's got double Medivh's Valet, he still has Frostbolts. He knows Fireball's on the deck, but that's just this turn. Next turn he's going to draw 4 more cards, or 5 more cards total. The natural draw from this turn, 3 draws at the end, and then a draw the next turn. So,
but 7, 12, 16 Fireball. Oh, he did 22 damage. He's so close to lethal himself. I mean, it's just one of the things. When you know you give up the board, Spiteful Summoner summons a powerful minion like that.
So you're saying Charged Devilsaur.
Charged Devilsaur is lethal.
That means he has to win the 50-50 for Free from Amber versus Mind Control from the Spiteful Summoner, and then get the 1 in 30, 40.
He can just Free from Amber himself if his counterspell doesn't go down.
Yeah, Free from Amber's, yeah. Better, but he can't.
Yeah, I can't guarantee it now.
Yeah.
Because 2 secrets are played. One of them's Potion of Polymorph, the other Explosive Runes. Because I believe the sequencing will force the damage through the Polymorph Sheep.
Yes. So this is a math game for Ender. It's like, what's his highest percentage win?
It's the Free from Amber, I think.
No, because he probably thinks one of these is Counterspell.
Sorry, I thought you meant his factual high percentage win. Just Free from Amber. But
from his perspective, it's Spiteful Summoner into Free from Amber into Devilsaur.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
3% chance?
Didn't get it.
And he was not expecting the Explosive Runes, and I think he realizes that maybe there was just an opportunity to do something else instead.
But I don't think there was any way for him to.
Right, because Counterspell, Explosive Runes is exactly what you're expecting every time.
Yes.
I don't blame him at all.
Yeah, I think that's his highest percent win right there. And now it's almost 0% because of the fact that Odyssey has just had so many draws. Incredibly likely that he has burn damage, and Odyssey goes up to a 2-1 lead.
That is match point for Odyssey to send another player home. He is the last representative that isn't from ANZ. He represents Thailand and also the Greater Asia region.
Yeah, Jack Attack waiting in the finals. Professor Oak waiting in the lower bracket finals.
So so he's got to win with the Quest Rogue. He's got to win with the Secret Mage. So that means his last deck is Warlock.
Warlock versus the 2 Spiteful decks from Ender.
Right.
Both Spiteful Priest and Spiteful Druid.
And you think the Control Warlock's got things under control here against the Spiteful decks?
I don't know. That one's tough. Spiteful Priest, I think, especially against the non-cube variant, has some game because Grand Archivist plus Spellbreakers are that much more effective.
Yeah.
But it's going to be tough. The one benefit that it does have is it's not really vulnerable to Rin, because if they're playing Seals, you're just making big stuff, and they're spending all of their mana on Seals. So that's one part of the game plan that they're not vulnerable to. But Control Warlock is just one of the strongest decks in the game for a reason. So
that's right.
Still going to be tough.
So there's a lot of drama ramping up here as we go into game number 4. But before we do, we are going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to have the resolution of this best of 5.
The Cine HCT stop is proudly supported by McDonald's Australia.
Consistently, and he's going to do the same against Ender.
Wow. Look at that class diversity, TJ. Six different classes.
It's the promised land, man. We've reached it.
Oh, yes. Wow. Yeah, I mean, banning the Priest was definitely an interesting choice. Wasn't expecting that per se. But, hey, can't really blame it. Priest has some really powerful matchups, and if anything that this tournament has proven, it's just further respect for Spiteful Priest. I first thought that, for a while, right after 10.2, that Spiteful Priest wasn't as hyped as it is. Or it shouldn't live up to the hype,
sure,
but still really good. Because I was a firm believer that Dragon Combo Priest was still, like, the better deck, and almost no one brought it. And Spiteful Priest still is very dangerous.
Yes. I think the difference being that Spiteful Priest fits in an aggressive lineup better, whereas Dragon Combo Priest doesn't have as much crossover with, like, say, Secret Mage. And it's one of the reasons why you see the Spiteful Priest in a lineup strategy as opposed to just individual power level of decks. I honestly still think Dragon Combo Priest individually is a more powerful deck than Spiteful Priest.
Right.
People may disagree with me, but in a vacuum, I think it is. But in a lineup strategy, I think Spiteful Priest fits better.
Okay. Well, that's certainly very interesting to note there. Firefly off the top. And very nice pick up there for Odyssey, so you can get a little semblance of board control against the Murloc Paladin. Because what's important isn't necessarily getting the quest off the Firefly, it's the Flame Elemental if needed. This is the kind of start that's made of nightmares. You're so afraid of the Rockpool Hunter. Look at Odyssey just snap calling. This is in stark contrast to his series versus Ghost, where it was just like really, really tight ropes back and forth.
Probably because against Ghost, Odyssey had lost to Ghost earlier on in the tournament.
Oh, okay. All right.
And he changed up his ban strategy and had a little bit of time to think about what his game plan would be. And he said he sort of changed his approach. And I think when you change your approach like that, of course, you're going to take things slower because you want to make sure that you're actually doing what you're supposed to do against a lineup like that. He had been Shaman in the first series against Ghost. Completely changed it up, banned Rogue the second time, and it looked like a much easier series for him.
Yeah, we've seen that happen in a lot of tournaments in recent times. Most notably in the Summer Championships.
Orange.
Yeah.
Versus Omega
banned
Zero,
Hunter
right?
and then said, you know what, I'm just going to ban a better deck.
Yeah.
And then won.
That's right. Vanish ends up being pretty good against Murloc Paladin. They can reload, but a lot of times that's sort of the tempo that you need.
Yeah, it's usually just about a time issue. You can win the board most of the time, but it does change when Paladin has Call to Arms. That's almost the point of no return, because you're just looking for the damage as the Paladin, because you want to rush the Quest Rogue down, and Call to Arms is so sticky, and unless they have preparation, it's not going to really happen.
Yeah, and Odyssey isn't really that close to even anywhere near completing the quest.
Yeah.
No bounce effects right now outside of Vanish, which is the messiest of bounce effects. And no Gadget and Ferryman or Youthful Master or Shadow Step or even Sonya Shadow Dancer would be good in this situation because of the fact that Stone Tar Spores are in the hand. So can use the Gorgon to maybe get a little bit online, but he's kind of running out of time because Ender's board is going to snowball very quickly.
Well, it's definitely going to be the case here. And did I ever tell you about my baseball career?
We had a conversation about it a while ago.
Is there some weird time travel thing where like you gave me the bat when I was a kid so I can learn baseball so you can bring up this conversation?
That's right, yes.
TJ's been watching me my entire life.
And that's when I bought this blue shirt.
And wore the gray pants.
And wore the gray pants.
You gave me the link to buy those gray pants on Amazon. It was you. Wow. Well, going and focusing back to this game, we have Warlock versus Priest. The Control Warlock, we kind of talk about how it handles Spiteful decks. And you kind of mentioned that it's got a lot of removal tools. How do you think it factors in? You kind of talked about Rin and some of these other tools that we see in the Control Warlock. Is it even relevant against the Spiteful deck that's this slow right now?
Yeah, so the Control Warlock is pretty vulnerable to a lot of the tools that Spiteful Priest has. They have a lot of removal, but you're never going to outpace a Spiteful Priest with removal.
Right.
And Spiteful Priest also has a ton of tools to be able to disrupt your big demon combos. Because just having Mind Control available, having Cabal Songstealer available, and having like Grand Archivist into Mind Control available, it's very likely that you're going to be able to take a Void Lord at some point in the game. And then also, as I mentioned before the break, the Rin game plan that Control Warlock sometimes uses against slower decks, it does not affect Priest at all, Spiteful Priest at all, most of the time, because you're spending mana on seals while they're spending mana on making these giant boards. So you often don't have time to go for that plan of blowing up their deck. So I do think that the Spiteful Priest is better situated against this deck.
Yeah, from my experience, and part of what makes Spiteful Summoner Priest so strong and dangerous is that it's totally comfortable playing this slow. Most people think of this deck as the 1 to 6 curve and then it's game over.
Yeah.
But in a lot of matchups, if it's able to even dig out really powerful control tools, it can play almost a fatigue style against the Control Warlock in a sense where you remove the Void Lord from the pool of minions that come out. And then also you put them in a situation where even if they do play N'Zoth, Blood Reaver Gul'dan, and summon like one Void Lord back, you silence and push for the lethal.
Yeah. And
so it's a very tense board situation all the time.
And Ender actually had the opportunity to pick a third silence.
Oh, right, with the Spellbreaker.
And he has 2 Cabal Songstealers in his hand, so he'd rather pick Twisting Nether to have a wider variety of game plans. But he has, again, so many disruption tools for this Warlock's game plan. With the Cabal Shadow Priest plus Songstealers, he realized that he doesn't even need the third silence because what are you even going to silence at that point?
I mean, Cabal... We need more names. We just call her like Susan or something. Like Cabal Shadow Priest is also a silence effect by taking the possessed lackey here and just like stealing it. And now Odyssey is kind of on the back foot. But there's a very real point where the Control Warlock can lock out the Summoner Priest by getting the Death Knight out. And then you're able to grind out a lot of the resources of the Spiteful Summoner Priest. But it does require you to preemptively get ahead on the board so that things like the Void Lords can trade and keep your health total in check without getting overwhelmed by a silence push.
But continuing to disrupt. That's the name of the game.
Yeah, but the life total isn't really at critical levels just yet. Problem is, Odyssey has no clear way to win the game, and you know, when you use Twisting Nether on 3 minions, normally that's pretty good, right? A 1 for 3, but you have so many waves of threats that can also just continue to generate resources themselves, like Spiteful Summoner and Free from Amber. It's just so powerful to just play 2 minions and then wait for them to use big removal and play 2 more minions.
Yeah, it's very true. Now Ender's in a situation where he has to decide how much he wants to extend onto the board. He's going into turn 8. With Twisting Nether, he knows that he selected Twisting Nether from Dreadnought Operative, so 1 was in the deck when he had played that. But Odyssey runs 2, so how likely is it that he has that second copy or has drawn the other one? And if that's the case, he's going to want to play just... Okay, so he's playing for a card draw here. So this is... Yeah, I don't like playing Spiteful Summoner here because that feels like a bit of an overextension. And he doesn't want to play Cabal Songstealer because that's a crucial tool. So it's either Free from Amber and then trade over a Doomsayer, or try and play... take a turn to play for value while you can.
Bookworm, one of the stronger tools that you can pick up in these slower matches, as you can utilize the Twilight Acolyte to guarantee a snipe on any of the big minions. Although Bookworm can already just take down the Void Lord itself.
Well, here comes the second Cabal Songstealer.
$10 damage with the threat of Mind Control in the following turn. This is starting to become really scary for Odyssey.
Yeah.
But if you can get past this first 2 waves, there's actually not too much substance besides the Spiteful Summoner and the Free from Amber after that. It's just kind of noise, you know, Shadow Ascendant, Dustbreaker, Fairy Dragon, that all gets swept up by 1 card.
Yep.
It's really about surviving this wave, another wave of big minions, and then you should be good to go.
But now, since both of these Void Lords are silenced, the order of which he draws the 2 big 10-mana cards, N'Zoth and Blood River Gul'dan, matter.
Yeah, that's true too.
Because he has to play the Blood River Gul'dan first to be able to get full value from Void Lords, to have them be summoned back from N'Zoth, and actually finds a way to clear off this board without using Twisting Nether, which is actually quite a big deal. And he's also pushing damage.
He's also not life tapping. And it's not about necessarily
a conscious choice to not life tap.
Yeah, it's not about like the health total. It's just, or I think it is about the health total, but it's like usually you also don't life tap if you feel like you have the resources necessary to continue the game.
Okay.
It turns out he does.
He does, yeah. And now drawing that before N'Zoth is a pretty big deal. Because now there's no more silence effects.
But now if I am Ender, I just saw that my opponent has 4 cards and he hasn't life tapped, so he's kind of low on cards for removal. And if you're able to play these big threats, I mean, Bite Life is great and all, but it only does 3 damage. Odyssey's going to be forced to address this board, and it's just looking like a Twisting Nether. And if he's Twisting Nether, that's pretty much his last line of defense against a big board. And if Ender gets a big...
man.
Just kidding. How does he know, man? He just knew that he was going to get Blood River Gul'dan and N'Zoth back-to-back.
This is kind of where I question the Twisting Nether choice.
As opposed to the silence?
As opposed to the silence. It may seem like you don't need the redundant sources of silences, but against this deck, I feel like you do. Because there's always going to be something to silence. Unless you're stealing the Void Lords, at some point they're going to come back. And so now this Twisting Nether doesn't really make much of a difference. And if he waits to N'Zoth and then Twisting Nethers, I feel like at that point he's already like behind if he's having to play defensive. Maybe I'm wrong on that, and that's what he was thinking of. He's playing the super long game plan. But still, it's just something to think about. That was a conscious choice that Ender was given. And now he's on the clock himself, because even if he heals every turn, eventually Odyssey still will kill him. And N'Zoth is probably just going to hit the board next turn. Unless he wants plated beetle value from N'Zoth.
Well, the nice thing is that Odyssey's locking up the mana usage. But yeah, that is...
Sup.
Actually, Twisting Nether is still lethal, isn't it? Just because he leaves 7 minions on the board. And he heals 10.
Yeah.
Which means Bite is... Oh, he gained for the Mistress, my bad. I didn't count that. It was a very fast sequence.
This one looks pretty done for Ender. No defensive options whatsoever.
Yeah, Control Warlock just steamrolling the Spiteful Summoner Priest. Turns out a lot of those the waves got handled when you draw your back-to-back 10-mana nuke options.
Yeah, and Odyssey moves on.
Wow. Ender was favored on paper to be able to take down Odyssey. And instead, his journey ends here in the top 4. And Odyssey from Thailand, representing the Asia continent, able to keep all their players' hopes and dreams alive and taking down ANZ by himself.
Yeah,
but he's going to have to win 3 series in a row on stream if he's going to win the entire thing. And
yeah.